Koya, my name is Koya Vaka'uta. I'm from the University of the South Pacific, Oceania Center for Arts, Culture and Pacific Studies. I'm here at the Pacific Oceans Alliance gathering. For me, the Pacific Oceans Alliance is such an important initiative because it allows for better regional coordination of our oceans conversation within a broader ecological discussion, both global, regional and national. It offers opportunities for transdisciplinary, multi-sectoral discussions across our institutions, within our governments, and enables us to arrive at a more holistic understanding of the issues. A global problem that we see across the Pacific as well is that many of our discussions, important discussions, happen in pockets and in silos. And a lot of the decisions that are made are not always well informed across the sectors. And so we could actually work more sustainably if we pool our efforts using the very limited resources that we have. A personal area of interest for me in this discussion is the issue of traditional knowledge. It's heartening to see the region's stand over the last 5 years increasing in the desire to recognize the value and benefit of traditional knowledge. But at the same time, I feel like there needs to be more awareness about the role of indigenous peoples and local community in the Pacific and globally. The traditional knowledge conversation is a highly sensitive one because while we do want to make traditional knowledge accessible to be used for sustainable measures and approaches that benefits everyone, we are also talking about closed knowledge, sacred knowledge, that is bound by customary rules and regulations. And we don't necessarily have the legislature in place to protect the owners and holders of that traditional knowledge. And so a particular interest for me is trying to ensure that in our discussions, as we try to make traditional knowledge a core part of all the work we do, that at the same time we're cleaning house and making sure that that protection is in place for our people. The last, I guess, area that I would like to see as a cross-cutting measure would be how do we consolidate our messaging, and that's not just ocean messaging but also the general broader ecological messaging, and how do we ensure that that messaging enables a better understanding at the local community level, because climate change and ocean science is filled with technical Western science terminology that our people don't necessarily understand. And if we don't have a holistic understanding, they won't recognize how economic agendas or political agendas will have lasting impacts on our efforts towards sustainability. So for me, communication, advocacy, and education is really the underlying indicator of success, because a lot of wonderful work is happening that we don't know about, that we could learn from, that we could adapt across the region as well as globally. But if we don't take the time to learn about them and to package them and communicate them in our own languages and in ways that our people can really connect with and fully understand, then our efforts to implement there'll be barriers to our implementation, and we won't necessarily achieve the full potential of our efforts. And again, just reinforcing that we have such limited resources, we really need everyone on board. So mobilizing the local communities, CSOs, youth, our indigenous communities out there in the rural and isolated communities will be so important. So as an example, one of the efforts at the Oceania Center where I'm based is trying to effectively utilize the arts and culture as a vehicle for this messaging. So we talk about issues-based art. We talk about using arts as an advocacy tool. We talk about the use of indigenous methodologies, whether it's in research or whether it's in development, just to ensure that we are constantly keeping up with the times, but at the same time putting into place contextually relevant approaches to everything that we do, so that we're not just focusing on the outcomes and measuring and reporting, but our processes are in order, that they are contextually relevant for our people, for the benefit of our people, to improve the quality of their lives. One of my biggest concerns really is the data rush, and sometimes we forget the human face in the conversation. And so I think that we do need to think a little bit more carefully about our messaging, about the critical role that communications and advocacy will play, and more effectively mobilizing the media as partners in that discussion so that they are fully aware, and working better with our cultural advisors on the ground so that these messages are packaged in language where necessary, or through the arts and culture in a way that people can more fully emotionally engage, and it's something that they feel personally connected to, and not just a bigger conversation where we don't really have a part to play. And I think when we all recognize we have a part to play, real transformation will happen.